Just a quick video today, and we're back up in Northumberland on the Naworth Coalfield, and we're going to have a look at one specific area. We're on the River South Tyne, as you can see it snaking in here, past Lambley and Coalwood. But what we're going to do, we're going to go across the coalfield. We've got Lambley Colliery, worked by the National Coal Board. That's where they were. You can still see that. We've got the there's the Ulston branch railway running towards Lambley station, and then obviously there's the Hartleyburn railway, Lord Carlisle's railway, up to Haltonley Gate. The coal outcrops right along this bank. Well, actually, the bottom seam, the mid-zone seam, crops out all along here, and that's where we're going to have a look at that area, but specifically on Hartleyburn Common, which is this area here. There's three royalties here, as we point out. We're on the Lambley royalty here. This is the Ulston branch, and that bridge is the boundary between the Ulston Railway and Lord Carlisle's Hartleyburn Railway. This is the Lambley Colliery from the 19th century and later reopened in the 20th century. This is where the 20th century Lambley Colliery was run by Johnny Longridge and then by the National Coal Board. But this is Hartleyburn Common, owned by the Carlisles. This was a different royalty altogether. And then as we get further along, obviously, we get into the Gilsland barony. So we're going to be looking at this area. It's a shaft that I found just a couple of months ago on the Ordnance Survey map, and then went down to have a look. And it's a big shaft. And when we look on the first Ordnance sheet, we can see a couple of reservoirs, well, or lodges, and some interesting features. So I put the drone up to go across into the mid-zone bottoms, thinking I might see some other old shafts, but I didn't realise this area has all been open cast. So the very old the collieries from the 1700s, the 1760s, comes along here in the well site coal, but this shaft might be part of something completely different. There's an awful lot of really ancient shafts down here that we'll possibly never know the history of, and when we've had a look at this round, that's Clover Hill Farm, round about there, we're going to go across then to Green Rigs, or near Green Rigs, and we're going to have a look at some of these old shafts. And when we get the drone up, the new Desi, you can really see all these pits. There's loads of them. Now, one thing I did miss while I was there, because I hadn't done my proper research first, was an old drift down here into the low main that was worked when the NCB and Lambley Colliery were working the low main. But anyway, it's a fantastic area, prehistory, and you'll get a good idea of all these old shafts. The possibilities of really finding any proper hard and fast history about them is going to be pretty remote. Right, I'm down looking at an old shaft down below Clover Hill, and I've just had the new Desi up, getting a better look at the shaft, because without getting in the field we can't. But I noticed it on the first edition Ordnance Survey map with some couple of really interesting features around it, namely a lodge and a water flow going, well, that's Clover Hill on that side, that's where the shaft is, and the water flow come across the road, we're behind Holly Rig, and went down onto this side. So what we've done, we sent Desi up and gone along right down into mid-zone bottoms, following what is not the outcrop obviously, but I think it's part of the old water level for the old Hartleyburn Colliery. When mid-zone was working in the 1860s, and from like 1830 on down in the bottoms there, they drove a water level in the 1860s, 1870s, and in the engineer's report he says, well, we don't want to make the owners of Hartleyburn or Hang Site Colliery, we don't want to give them advantages by draining their pit as well. So I think, right, who owns Hartleyburn? We know that certainly what looks to be Lord Carlisle's company that looked to be working the pits in the 1770s across there. They did lease a bit of land off Carlisle. You see, this land was between the Gilsland barony, the Carlisles, which were like the back end of the Blenkinsop family, I believe. They married into them, and then when you got across onto Lambley side, across there, it was the Reverend Allgoods. So you had three different royalties here. Eventually, Lord Carlisle's, he ended up sort of like working them all, or Thompson did. I think Carlisle sort of leased them for him, but it's looking like this is the old Hartleyburn or Hang Site Colliery, which round the end of the 1700s, beginning of the 1800s, looks to have been worked by our friends Crowhall and Wilson, who were sort of rivals to the Carlisle company for a start up until the 1820s. They eventually went over to Blenkinsop, and then they were the leasees up at Coalwood, so they're always like a thorn in the side of Thompson and Lord Carlisle. So this is the Hangsyke pit, and I think further down where the engine house cottages would also be the Hartleyburn Colliery. Well, it was, but that would be in the Craig Nook coal. Now I'm thinking this is either in the Midgehome coal, the slag, or in the Wellsyke. I can't say for sure. So here we have the feature, the shaft on the first edition Ordnance Survey map, and it's these features that are really interesting. Can you see this lodge? And then from the shaft there we've got this watercourse going to yet another lodge, or whatever it is, on this side here. Which way does the water flow? Is it flowing out of the shaft down into there, or is it flowing the other way? That is interesting. Here we've got Holly Rig, and we've got two shafts, the Penton shaft and Lord's Pit. Lord's Pit is itself a little bit of an enigma. Yeah, the story behind it. It appears on the plans as something separate in the Wellsyke. But anyway, we're talking about this. It's a really interesting feature that you can't see anymore. You just can't. Was this lodge in association with the shaft? Was there a water wheel here? And is this the outflow from the pump, if you know what I mean? You can't see anything on LiDAR, and you can see very little. I think we might have picked up a little bit of this on some drone footage. And if we look on LiDAR, let's slake it back, there we've got our shaft, and as you can see, we can't really see any of those other water features, can we, you know? We can't at all. But interesting, when we get Desi up in a minute, you can see where the boundaries of the open cast are. This is Clover Hill, and this is the boundaries of the open cast. And then as we go into Midgehome Bottoms here, and we've got the Haining Burn level, which is the water level that was driven in the 1860s. Sorry, the 70s. I've got to get my dates sorted out. In the 1760s and the 1770s, this was the water level that came across to here. So let's have a deeper dive into the Wellsyke coal, that area. I really love this plan because it shows the Blackburn and where they've diverted it to drive the water wheels at the various pumping shafts. And further down we've got a place that we know very well. We're in the Midgehome Bottoms, and that's the old Midgehome engine pit that can still clearly be seen. And it looks like here, this is where they've diverted the river, but also we believe that there was a lodge further up to provide water as well for the water wheel. And if we look, you can see that the level mouth in there of the Haining Burn level. But let's get back to this well site coal. Can you see they extended the Haining Burn level around about 1769 to 1770 into the well site coal. And we can see there what looks to be the main coal drawing shaft in the well site. Now I want you to remember that the coal dips from the north down to the south about an angle of 1 in 6. So this is the lowest level they were working. This is the water level board, as it would be known, and they worked the coal back to the rise. The coal above is older workings. It's already been worked. And like I say, this shaft dates, or these workings date from about 1772. There's a newspaper item that says that the coaling of the engine shaft, and they had a big sort of beef and ale party to celebrate. But we can see how it comes across there into Hartleyburn Common. Can you see? But we can't see that shaft that I've been looking at. And this shows it really clearly. You can't see the level going to daylight. It shows you the old mid-home engine pit, and it shows you the Haining Burn level being extended. This is a later extension, by the way, when Thompson started sinking the King pit. So here we've got those 1770 workings in the well site coal coming right across towards Clover Hill. Again, I'm taking this to be the boundary. But we can't see our shaft, can we? It's not on the plan, so it must be to do with something else. And just one final look. Now we have free level, which means it's free draining. That's your Haining Burn level. And again, this is your old well site. These are more modern workings from the King pit. Coming across Clover Hill, and our shaft isn't there, is it? So it probably is, or possibly something to do with the Hartleyburn the Hartleyburn Colliery, or the Hang Site Colliery. And what they were frightened of when they drove the water level was this benefiting the owners of that colliery by draining theirs. Isn't it fantastic? And what you can see there in the distance, the building is the Brampton Mary pit. Sometimes known as the mineral shaft, but Jack Taylor always said it was called the Brampton Mary pit for whatever reason. And it was sunk basically as a drainage shaft. There was a Cornish steam engine in there, beam pump, pumping the water out. I don't know why they call it the mineral shaft, but it was actually sunk beyond the coal measures. It was the other side of the big Stubblick dyke, but obviously they put a roadway through to drain. You've got the Brampton Mary pit in the background there. That dates from, I've got the exact date at home, but I think the early 1840s, whereas the engine house, the Craig Nook engine pit here, is an awful lot older. And like I say, I think Crowhollow and Wilson originally had this, and Thompson did take it over. And the engine house cottages that were here were lived in up until, well, the early 20th century. Until not long ago, you could actually see where the shaft top was. You could see there's like a big concrete capping over the top of it. Obviously it's changed a lot since they got modified into houses. But there was a water wheel here, you can see the back there, where who would have got the water for the wheel from, and some tile sheds further along as well. But when these leases stopped working, and Allgood's leases stopped working, it affected Thompson's working, because these are to the dip. In effect, it was draining the catch pit as it was then, and they were starting to sink the King pit, weren't they? So it affected their workings, so Thompson had to do something quick. And he came across and he sorted out the steam engine, got it going. That was either here, as I say, across on Allgood's land. But Thompson worked this anyway. They took it over, and then they started to develop the Hartleyburn on the other side, where the sometimes known as the Star Pit, sometimes known as the Swan Pit, and they developed that along with the Mid-Young King Pit, and they extended the railway across. You can see where the railway, well, they had like a tramway off the railway down to where the Swan Pit was. The Swan Pit's getting kind of dilapidated now, to say the least. So we've walked down from the shaft here in the well site down towards the Craig Nook engine pit, and it's shown on the Gilsland Baronet estate plan of 1828. It's shown there as the Craig Nook engine pit. They were later known as the Engine House Cottages, and as I said, they were inhabited up until at least 1910, 1911, when they were getting in a terrible state. Now, I mentioned the Swan Pit, and here we can see it. Although it says Star Pit here, it seems to have gone under two names at different points. The Swan is supposed to come from the Cameron Swan, who had the Spelter Works, but I can't say for sure. Originally, it was the Star Pit, and we're going to have a fly over it. It's still there, but sadly, it's fallen in bits, and it was sunk down to the well site coal, and they worked the Mid-Young coal through it as well. The railway was extended from Mid-Young all the way across to Lambley, but here at Hartleyburn they took a tramway off down here to the shaft, and I tell you what's great as well. Look at that clough, Bargain Clough. Why is that called Bargain Clough? Is that where they did the cables, drew the cables, or does it mean something else? The Brampton Mary pit, well, that's there. It's now been redeveloped as a holiday cottage, but I do have some photographs from before that time when you could see a little bit of the infrastructure, and the shaft is there around about 400 and odd feet deep to drain. It must have been great to watch that engine running, mustn't it? So we'll do a few of our geologicals, go back a little bit. Here's the original shaft we looked at, and we've got the well site coal cropping out there. The Mid-Young or slag seam crops out to the north, and then the Craig Nook is cropping out to the south. That's the shallowest, most coal seam. So I think maybe our shaft is down to the well site, as we saw. We've got Hollyrig there. And this one just shows our Craig Nook engine pit. It doesn't give us a depth, but it is about 101 feet down to the Craig Nook seam. There we've got the Swan Pit, which we find the well site coal at 75 foot and the 3/4 at 58 feet. And we've got on here as well the mineral shaft, the Brampton Mary pit, which went all the way down. They bored right the way down to the little limestone coal as well. And we see we've got the Stublick fault, the main fault that cuts everything off running there, and the mineral shaft, or the Brampton Mary pit, was on the opposite side of the fault. And this one tells us that the little limestone was 2'2", but obviously it's never been down to be worked. It's still there to this day. We've got the Swan Pit there, and it doesn't show our shaft that we've been looking for. This one does, but it calls them Old Bell Pits, which of course they're not. That's our shaft, one at Hollyrig. At the Hollyrig we've got the Penton, it shows the Penton, and we've also got Lord's Pit. And if you look at this line of old shafts right across here, which is what we're going to come and have a look at in a minute or two. Kind of wonder where the wheel pit was. Maybe that's been filled in, but I just spied what looks like a coke oven I've never seen before. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, it's another oven. I'd never kind of noticed that one before. I knew the one across the road. So that's going to be pre-1820. The back of the houses there. I'm not sure if that wasn't the shaft top on the top. We'll just have another ratch over. Here we are. This is the top of the shaft. The concrete capped off. I wish we could work out how the engine worked. But as I said, it would have been really modified when they had the houses here. I'll just have a quick shove to hit the coal coven across the road. There we are, that's the one on the other side of the Keller Road, and across to where the Swan pit is. And Thompson's, they sunk other pits in this field before they sunk the Swan pit. Yeah, there is other shafts, and I have found quite a few of them in the past. That area was obviously taken over by the National Coal Board. Well, Johnny Longridge for a start, when he came back here in the 1940s, and then the Coal Board under the Lambley. So Hartleyburn and Lambley really just became one thing under Lambley, and it became known as Lambley East. But there's a lot of prehistory here that we know diddly squat about, and we're going to have a wander across right over there and just have a look at another two shafts there that are out dead. Well, interesting in the fact that we don't know about them. So let's move on from the engine house cottages that are here, and you can see Google Earth shows the shaft up very well, doesn't it, there? And we're going to go across via past the Swan pit there, following the Blackburn, right down across towards Green Rigs, towards this area here. And this is our next port of call, our next recce. Here we are down by Green Rigs, and you can certainly see one there and another one in this field, and we're kind of on a line with Ollie Rig where Lord's pit comes across, and Lord's pit was certainly down to the well site. So it looks like these are following a certain line, maybe an old water level, but these will be, certainly on this side of the road, will be on Allgood's lease. I'm wondering where about Carl Ellison's stops on that side, not sure. And here's the bit I missed off. I should have looked at this before I went. There we've got the drift into the low main. There, we're parked there and flying along, and that's where the low main drift is. As we go along with Desi, let's see if we can see it. And we can see it on the Geological survey here, can't we, as well? There it is. It's a bit thin to see, you know, the road there. The main road's a little bit thin to Green Rigs, but that's the drift going into the low main, and it also says to the slag. Old pits all along here, as it points out. That's the midjome or slag coal cropping out, which I think most of these old shafts are down to. And there we've got the low main, and then you're totally and utterly off the coal measures. So you can see off that drone flight there's an awful lot of old shafts here, and they're not just holes in the field as we look at them. Each shaft tells a story. Somebody sunk it, numerous people went down it and got coal, and sadly it's history that I don't think we're ever going to find out about. But what a fascinating area. All pre-1700 stuff that we know now. Yeah, so get digging, Graham. A trip down to Northumberland Records office is in the order, really, because Hartleyburn Common is massive, really. It's very extensive. So the thing I need to find out, the first line of shafts we saw near Clover Hill, are they to do with the other Hartleyburn Colliery, or could they possibly be to do with Midgehome when they were down there in the 1760s and 1770s? Because some of the info that Graham's pulled up, some of the documents, talk about them leasing land off Carr Ellison. And the old engineer's report I got from 1763 and 1771, it talks about when they put the new engine shaft down and drove the new water level, that they could work so far into Hangside Common. So they could possibly be belonging to the Midgehome workings. I don't know. Hartleyburn Common, as I say, is a big place. Then you've got that big expanse between Hollyrig across to Greenriggs and all those shafts along there. Who are they to do with? So, like I say, it's a big history, isn't it? Delving right back. But I think there might be an estate plan down at Woodhorn. We'll see. Anyway, just a short video. Thanks for watching.